The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
The Dave Hooker Show. A presentation of Off the Hook Sports. Objective insight, expertise, top guests. Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free. Also available on offthehooksports.com.
I compute and obey.
Now to Dave Hooker.
Ready.
We definitely knew that Tennessee was going to have a big news day on Tuesday because they had their media day to open up camp. What we didn't know is that Tennessee would pick up a commitment and that there would be some significant news coming out of a media session, which usually doesn't happen. So we'll get to that. Our thoughts on Tennessee meeting with the media on Tuesday. Those interviews are on our YouTube channel right now. If you would like to hit the like and subscribe button, you can be a part of that. And Caleb said this a couple of different times. Are the Vols putting too much into 2024? It feels like a load up, this is the year type of feel. And I would debate that Tennessee's not going to be that type of program. They're going to be a knock-the-door type of program for the foreseeable future. But we'll discuss that. James Pierce did not show up to media days. That's disconcerting. And I can't tell you all of the backstory why, but we're going to get into that. And if you're a Tennessee fan, you're hoping James Pierce makes it through the end of the year and everything's fine, and he's a fantastic player for Tennessee. But right now, the young man is dealing with some issues. I'm not going to get into the depth of the issues, but the fact that he wasn't at media day was very, very obvious. Caleb Calhoun, you're here. You're present. How are you, sir?
I am good. How are you doing, Dave?
I'm doing well. It was nice to talk to some Vols. And it was nice to talk to Nico. And Nico will be a Trevor Lawrence. Tennessee will be a Clemson. Just off the top of your head, what do you make of that? And I kind of agree with it because I think Nico is that special. And I think Tennessee will be like a Clemson where they'll be able to knock on the door. If Georgia gets elite talent out of that area, they probably can't beat them in one particular year or two, but I think Tennessee can beat Clemson, knocking on the door, and who knows, win a couple of national titles. I think that's actually a good comparison in terms of what Tennessee should shoot for success level. Everybody wants to shoot for Alabama, Caleb, and the 89 championships they won, but let's be realistic for a second.
Yeah, so that's why I'm not going to go Trevor Lawrence for Nico. Now, I'm going to say this up front. I don't mean character-wise. I just mean in general. I'm going Deshaun Watson because that was the first quarterback to win Clemson the national title. And the guy waiting in the wings was Trevor Lawrence, and that could be George McIntyre.
Okay. That's an interesting direction to go.
And for real context, Hendon Hooker was Taj Boyd, and Joe Milton was Cole Stout.
Okay, the reason that I'm not going to make that comparison is I heard things about Deshaun in recruiting that weren't grand.
I said character notwithstanding.
Right, character notwithstanding. But still, when you hear those in recruiting, they usually carry a little bit of weight. So that would be but you did say character notwithstanding, but I could see that. You think George McIntyre could be better than Nico? Let me stop you there for a second before we get to our takeaways from the Vols media session yesterday.
Well, I don't think for Clemson, I don't think Trevor Lawrence was better than Deshaun Watson the way people thought. I thought Deshaun Watson had a better run at Clemson than Trevor Lawrence did. Trevor Lawrence was he was great as a freshman, but he wasn't even a Heisman contender the next 2 years.
No, he wasn't, and I think their talent level dipped a little bit, but you're right. Let's get to four downs now, and it's brought to you by our fantastic friends at Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win. Why Banks & Jones? Other lawyers say they'll go to trial. They won't. They'll settle. and they'll settle for less. Banks & Jones, ready to go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. Why settle? Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, today's tough question consists of 4 questions. Perhaps it's usually called another segment because I hit the wrong button, but nevertheless, takeaways from SEC Media Days. Let's go with Cooper Mays, who likes to say,
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. Coop, what down?
Coop here. First down.
Dylan Samson upset about being told he can't pass block. I won't tell you who asked that question, but he might have red hair. So I ask, does it bother him? Does it irk you that people say you can't pass block? And yeah, it bothered him. It was obvious. That's a good thing. It should bother him. And I do agree with him that it's become a talking point, Caleb, that it's probably not 100% his fault at times. I know he's had some whiffs, but there have been other times where he's probably been blamed publicly that it wasn't his fault. So, yes, he's defensive about it, and he's ready to battle about it. I think that's the perfect response.
I mean, if I were him, I think the better response would have been, I'm upset that I've given people the perception that I can't pass block, because it's not our fault for saying he can't pass block. We all have eyes, okay? This would be like Shaq saying, I hate that people say I can't hit free throws. Well, we watched you not be able to hit free throws. So
Right.
What are we supposed to say?
So I knew the second half of what I said you'd have an issue with, which is just that he acknowledged them. So you have a bit of an issue with that, but you got to have an issue with at least he's aware of it and mad about it. Not like there have been running backs that said, I'm going to do my running back thing and do the best I can in pass pro, and you're going to get used to it.
Yeah. And I'm not so sure that Dylan Sampson's not that guy. He just doesn't like the perception of being that guy.
Oh, okay.
I'm just saying, I have people say size. I saw a major unwillingness to block his first 2 years. I did not see
that's
effort.
a problem. That's big time. If it's a technique issue, which let's face it, they're not the most difficult techniques in the world in reads, but they should not be that. So let's get to second down. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
Thank you, Coop. Nico Iamaleava is having trouble keeping on weight. That was my takeaway, and I wrote about it. I think he is, if you look at his frame, he doesn't have a big upper body as far as his shoulder width, his girth, so to speak. So I think that is going to be an issue for him. However, he needs to be at 220, 225. The body can continue to mature, Caleb, and fill out. I think they call it the freshman 10 if you don't work out. But he is going to put on some more weight. The fact that he's around the 213-ish range is, I think, a little bit disconcerting, because you can expect most guys that are hard gainers can expect to lose weight during the season. So that's slightly concerning.
Yeah, that's a big issue. And also one of the things that's part of this is that given the tempo that Hypo runs with his offense, it's really hard to keep the weight on because you're constantly moving.
Not just on Saturdays, Monday through Wednesday at the hard practices too.
Yeah, exactly. So you are, I mean, it's like the difficulty of trying to get a guard in basketball to put on weight when they're constantly running full court. Okay, it's very difficult, and it is disconcerting. I will say that I think the tackles for Tennessee are very good this year, and John Campbell and Lance Hurd. We know what we think about Cooper Mays, so he should be well protected if that issue at running back notwithstanding. But that issue at running back does create more concerns. So I do think it's disconcerting. This is one of the biggest reasons I think they kept him on the bench last year, is they wanted him to go through conditioning to get his body to where it needed to be. Put it this way, 213 sure as heck is better than 190.
Yes, 213 is better than 190. That's about where he came in. So, and again, he is the issue is if he were 6'3", we'd be fine with the size, right? But you stand next to the guys I did yesterday, he's a legit 6'6". So to be 213-ish at 6'6" is still pretty slim. But I think Tennessee can handle that. Other takeaways from SEC Media Day. I'm sorry, Tennessee's Media Day. What down, Coop?
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. Third down.
I believe Jeremiah Thielander and Ricky Gibson are the breakout stars, especially defensively on this team. And here's why I think that, because they brought him to Media Day. Nobody requested Ricky Gibson, to my knowledge. Nobody would have requested Jeremiah Thielander, but they did. Young guys who are largely unproven. I believe they are your next guys that you're going to consider buying a jersey for.
Yes, I agree. And we saw signs of this all season for different reasons. Ricky Gibson stepped in down the stretch of the season to become a starter at cornerback. It was going to be down to him or Jordan Matthews. It became him. It seems like they're all in on him for this year, and I'm not shocked by that. Thielander kind of emerged actually during spring camp. For those who don't remember last year, Keenan Peele went down for the season. Elijah Herring stepped in at middle linebacker and did as well as he could, but just didn't have lateral quickness to be able to play middle linebacker. Towards the end of the season, Thielander started to get a few more of those reps. Then spring camp happened. They were both involved, and Elijah Herring hit the transfer portal. There's a reason for that. The reason was Jeremiah Thielander. So I think they're very high. Those are two. One of the things that they stand out with, Dave, is a lot of Tennessee's players are, highly touted freshmen or highly touted recruits, Arian Carter, Boo Carter, transfers, or experienced players who came in under Jeremy Pruitt. Jeremiah Thielander and Ricky Gibson are, I think those are guys that Josh Heupel takes pride in because he can bring them out to say, hey, look at player development. These aren't 5 stars that I signed, but now they're ready to play and be effective.
Along those lines, if you're trying to wag the dog, so to speak, you're definitely bringing a defensive back, right?
Oh, yes. Definitely.
It's like,
absolutely.
So you go in the defensive back room. Who graded the best in the last workout? Oh, you did? Okay, then we're going to go with you. Dylan says, I've been saying Thielander, or saying since the spring game that Thielander is going to have to make his case to start if Peely goes down again.
He's not going to make his case. He's going to start.
Yeah, I don't think there's a case to be made, Dylan. I'm going to take it a step further. I think he's your starter because they don't want to put Arian Carter there because it was proof within like 2 drives that he was an outside linebacker. If you notice, they tried him for a second. Herring couldn't play and is gone. I don't think there's any question. Nah, Jeremiah Thielander is your backup middle linebacker. I believe that's what was said. Guys, I don't want you to think I read too much in who they make available to the media, but it's a factor. It's a big factor. And I know Bill Martin is a smart guy. He puts a lot of names out there. Guys, there's a reason that Ricky Gibson was out there. He's going to be a starter. Okay, so he's going to start. Thielander is an injury away from starting, and maybe even, although we think it's 100% the Mike, don't we? Maybe even he's an injury away from starting that outside because he knows the linebacker position. I'm just throwing that out there. I think it's pure Mike, but I'm throwing it out there. There is no question in my mind that Bill Martin, he's Tennessee Sports Information Director. He goes to Josh Heupel and he says, I would like to take these guys out there. What do you think? And Josh Heupel looks at one and goes, he's not going to be a factor this year. We don't need to take him. He's going to be a factor. He's going to be a factor. Well, the 2 that were a factor were Thielander and Ricky Gibson. They'll be a factor this fall.
Yes, and when Tim Banks actually does his base 4-3 alignment, which he never does, no one ever does that anymore with nickel, but every now and then, like the main base alignment is the nickel, but every now and then they will put 3 linebackers out there. Thielander is always going to be that 3rd linebacker, and also there will be rotations. Arian Carter's going to need a breather, and Keenan Peele is going to need a breather at times. Guess who's going to step in? Jeremiah Thielander.
Yeah, Thielander is going to be your Sam. Every time you put a Sam out there, even though you don't do that really anymore. But I think he's going to be your Sam every time. Other takeaways from Tennessee's media days, and I think this one's exciting because Tennessee has had some really good tight ends, but special tight end physically, this guy fits the mold. And I'm going to go way back of a Dustin Moore, who I was asked about. Dustin Moore, one of the most talented tight ends that I've ever seen, that unfortunately had off the field issues. Not the case with Ethan Davis, though, as he's garnered his head coach's thoughts. What down, Cooper?
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
A good point by Dylan. T-Lander has been a menace on the special teams as well. Quickest way to get some legitimate playing time. Good point. Ethan Davis received a shout out from Josh Heupel. How big is that? 4 downs today, brought to you by our good friend T. Scott Jones at Banks & Jones. Well, it's because they're Tennessee's trial attorney. You can play to win with Banks & Jones because they'll go to trial. You've heard of other lawyers. They say they'll go to trial and fight for you. They won't. They just want to settle. That's the easiest way out. Well, that's not Banks & Jones, led by T. Scott Jones. They won't settle. They'll go to trial for you. Tennessee's trial attorney. They play to win. Truly, Tennessee's trial attorney when it comes to criminal defense or personal injury. Why settle? It's Banks & Jones. T. Scott Jones. BanksandJones.com. What about Ethan Davis getting a shout out at the tight end position? A talented basketball player type tight end that is going to be very good athletically. He just needed to get a little bit bigger and stronger and learn the position. But he gets a shout out from Josh Heupel. How big is that, Caleb?
I thought that was huge. Josh Heupel does not give random individual shout outs that often. He's very cagey. Now, to be fair, he was asked about the tight ends, but let's be honest, Dave. He was asked about the tight ends. Typical Josh Heupel answer, like, great group of young guys, developed, real fast, athletic, going to be good, and called it a day. He leads with a lot of new faces, a young face in Ethan Davis, and then spend the whole time talking about Ethan Davis when he was asked about the tight ends as a whole. Leads me to believe Ethan Davis is going to be a major weapon for Tennessee this year. I think he's going to rely heavily on Ethan Davis to be a weapon in the passing game because Josh Heupel doesn't usually say things like that. That was the only real volunteered player he volunteered to mention.
You know what I think the key for Ethan Davis is
What's that?
By the end of September, I think we'll know if he's going to be a factor because he will have had an opportunity to play against 2 lower level opponents and get his feet wet and feel comfortable, right?
Right.
And then you'll have an opportunity to see how he reacts against a big opponent on the road in Oklahoma. At that point, I think you'll have a pretty good idea at the end of September if you need to go his direction and play him more and more, or you need to go the Stays and Kitzelman direction at tight end to try to get through the year. Because I'm not sure that Ethan Davis is prepared to take that step. A lot of times when you're a basketball star and you have to make the move to a football star, there's a year of learning how to get tough. There's a year of learning how to become a better football player by knowing the playbook. So I'm not convinced he's ready, Caleb, but we'll know by the end of September.
Yeah, and the biggest difference with basketball and football that people don't realize is your chest mass, you want to use that as an advantage in basketball, whereas in football, you really try to you prefer a more narrow frame if you're in the passing game, right? If you're a pass catcher.
Yes. Did you use chest mass? I think that's the first time we've used chest mass.
Yes, I did. Put it this way, like people say, like, could LeBron play tight end? No, LeBron's ribs would get broken if he played tight end because his chest is just so large. You know what I mean? And I used to say that, like, could Michael Jordan play wide receiver? But no, Michael Jordan's chest is too large. Ethan Davis, with basketball, you kind of, particularly with the way you play defense, you kind of want to extend your chest mass, if that makes sense. And yes, I made up the word, but
I like the new word. It's right up there with hand size and soft commit and some of the other words that we've made up in sports over the years.
Yeah, there we go. Chest mass. If he doesn't really learn how to protect it and narrow it, he's going to get whacked at the line of scrimmage every time, right?
Yes.
And so I think that's the one thing you got to worry about transitioning from basketball to football. But Heupel touting him tells me that Heupel's high on him. And Heupel hasn't really had a tight end that he made an integral part of his passing game since he was Missouri's offensive coordinator.
Well, we had a couple of guys tout themselves. We had Dylan Samson say that all the pass protection's not my fault. We had Nico Iamaleava talk about how year 2 was his year. And somebody gave me a hard time about pronouncing his name slow. I like pronouncing his name. I think it's a fun name to pronounce. And it leads us to what the H? Because one player that should have been pumped up didn't even show up.
What the? What was he thinking?
Release the hounds.
The Dave Hooker Show.
Keep cool.
A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
James Pierce does not want to talk to anybody. He didn't show up to Tennessee's media day. There was a seat there for him. He was supposed to take the seat that Nico had just taken before him. There were cameras set up, including one by offthehooksports.com. Yet we had one problem. There was no James Pierce. Therefore, it is tough to do a group interview when you have no one to interview. I thought about sitting down and maybe fielding some questions about my pass rush ability, but I didn't think anybody would be interested. In all seriousness, this is a concern. I'm not asking if it was a concern. I'm telling you it's a concern. You're told to be someplace, and you're not. I realize you hate doing interviews. They are going to push you to do interviews. Say, I'm not going to do interviews, but don't agree to be someplace and not be there. Or Tennessee Sports Information Department needs to just stop asking. They didn't want him to go to SEC Media Days. I know some things off the record that I cannot share, that he's been through a tough time recently. I don't have a problem with him not wanting to do interviews nowadays, or maybe just being a shy guy and not wanting to do it at all. But he's got to stop being put in this position. They just need to come out with a statement or something saying he's not comfortable talking to the media, because this is a storyline, and it's been a storyline for 2 events, SEC Media Days and now Tennessee Media Days. So how concerned should Tennessee's fans be that James Pierce just decided to skip Tennessee's Media Day, in which he was going to talk to local media that were going to throw softball after softball at him, Caleb?
So, according to you, you're saying this was James Pierce willingly himself deciding not to show up yesterday, not the coaches not bringing him out.
That is correct. There was a seat waiting there for him, and we were all waiting there for him. And as I spoke to one person in the football office, said, you can do the best you can. Lead a horse to water type of thing, but you can't make them drink. James Pierce needs to realize, or maybe he does, that the more he's in front of a camera, the more sellable he is, right? From a NIL or endorsement standpoint in the NFL. I don't think he cares. Based off people I talked to, I think he could play NFL football for the next 8 to 10 years and be perfectly fine with life and not get one single endorsement. I don't think he cares. So Tennessee has to.
When you say that, you mean he don't think he cares about NIL? Are you saying you don't think? Do you think he doesn't care about football? Period.
No, not that at all. I don't think he cares about the extracurricular with football. I don't. Okay. I think he just likes to show up and play football. I don't think he wants to do interviews, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. But as a leader, you can't say you're going to be someplace and not be there. All the other players were there. I guarantee you, Jake Merklinger wasn't exactly happy about sitting there for of the 9 minutes. He was interviewed for about 4.5. Same thing for Ricky Gibson. I mean, there were some uncomfortable moments, as there's going to be with the media, but you've got to show up. Caleb, you and I haven't had a chance to talk deeply about this. What is your take? Because I think it's pretty disappointing to go out there, have everything set up, have this whole media day, and one of your top 2 players, arguably your best player, doesn't show up.
There have been red flags about James Pierce dating back to last summer. We first heard of him through the grapevine, but we first officially had him mentioned on our show during spring practice over a year ago When do you remember, Dave? Fred White came on and he specifically said, James Pierce, this guy's going to be a star. And then he said right after that, he said, bubble wrap him. Like, try to keep him out of trouble until the fall. Which that was my first red flag. I'm like, why are you worried about him doing something that would get him into trouble? And then December comes. What happens? Reckless driving charge, a traffic incident, an arrest, driving on a suspended license. Charges are dropped, but that's a red flag. And then he just goes quiet. I mean, just ghost everybody while we're all talking about him.
Now, can I defend him for a moment on that?
Sure.
I was told he went through some serious personal issues, and that's why. So I'm defending him. I'm as much defending him as I'm saying to you, should he be a concern? He might be a concern because he's got problems, not because he is not doing the things he's supposed to. So I want to be clear. I'm defending him as much as I am questioning.
Right. You're saying he's in the best way to say this is in a certain way. He's right now a victim. He's going through things that we just don't know about.
That I can't share. Yes.
Right. And that could affect his play on the football field, which again, we don't, we care about football. Everybody, I'm sure fans care about football, want him to do well, but you always wish the best for the person and the individual too. And so I'm with you on this. This is a red flag. It's a red flag for a few things. You're right. Whatever he's going through, Dave, sometimes things you're going through can result in poor behavior elsewhere. It could also result in poor play, which not only hurts Tennessee, but hurts himself and his NFL draft prospects going forward. So there's a lot of concern. So I'm not thinking about this from what is he going to do for Tennessee? What is he going to be able to do for himself? Because everybody wants him suited up in pads and balling on the field this year. That's what everybody wants to see. And
David says, could Pierce be a Jeremy Banks? No. I get no feeling that there is. With Jeremy Banks, there was an issue that he's still kind of like Jeremy Pruitt. I know that sounds stupid, but I mean, everybody else was on board the Heupel train, and with Banks, there was always a Pruitt thing. No, I think James Pearson, I want to be clear on this. I think he's a good teammate. I think he's a hard worker. I think he wants to be a great player. I just think he's gone through some tough times, and he doesn't want to be in the public eye right now. And that's perfectly fine. I can appreciate that. I can respect that. It's just you've got to make that clear to Tennessee Sports Information Department, because then it became a story of why I didn't show up. And it doesn't change if they release something today that he had a last-second summer exam that he had to take, Caleb. I mean, they can do that. And
what if it's
Dylan said on an interview that he did, he thought was awesome. And he interviewed very well. That's what I've been told too, is that he speaks very well. I just don't think he wants to do it.
What if, and I'm going to speak from a personal standpoint because it doesn't happen with me, but I have a friend who, like, whenever a lot of times we will make plans to go hang out, and that friend every now and then will flake and ghost, and I just won't be able to see him for like a day or two. And then I found out he has severe anxiety, and sometimes what if like James Pierce has just severe anxiety, and sometimes it hits him like, oh crap, I'm gonna go do a media interview, I'm having an anxiety attack, I gotta pull out. Like,
can I tell you, and you're right, I'm not ashamed to say, I've had an anxiety attack on the air, so that's no fun. So I can't imagine having an anxiety attack when you've got 20 grown men and you're a 19-year-old and they're shoving a mic in your face. So Jabril Wilson had, I believe, an anxiety attack during the interview, and I thought he had a stutter. He ended up being one of the best interviews out there. A couple of things on the message board. Let him play football as long as he's playing for us. I empathize with the reporters having a job to do. I also empathize with a guy who isn't comfortable getting interviewed. I feel the same way. I used to be mad, and I would say I'm your conduit to talk to the individual player. And I still believe that if a guy's like Arian Foster just wants to be a jackwagon. Okay. Now, this I think is a little bit more significant. Dylan says, I'm not concerned. Pierce is a business-minded guy. He's not blowing up his social media or looking at the spotlight. He just wants to play football, and I support that. Dylan, you got a lot of good posts, buddy, but I don't know that if I sat down and wrote that, I could nail that any better. He is going to be an incredible NFL player because it's his job to show up and be the best football player he can. I'm serious. Forget about whatever quarterback may be available. Trade up. Get that guy because he's going to show up and get a check and not have to worry about all the other stuff. And he's not going to have to talk to the media more than like 10 minutes a week, I think, is the NFLPA stipulation, or he can get a minuscule fine. He's going to love the NFL. And the NIL player that is going to be in existence 3 to 5 years from now, which may not even have to go to class, not that he has a class issue, but may not have to do all the extracurriculars, he's going to love that too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Because, Caleb, do you think he loves it when the Spire Group says, oh, in part to make some of your money, you need to speak to this church in Carnes? Oh, he doesn't want to do that.
No, he absolutely doesn't want to do that. I'm with you on that. And also, it's hard to get, like, let's call it what it is, with certain positions, edge rusher, defensive tackle. It's hard to get them to go, oh, now can you go speak to this charity event or this church event? Because some of them maybe can't turn off the anger you try to instill in them when they're playing. As you know, Dave, there was a defensive tackle for Tennessee who had trouble, who was very nice and had to get mean when he played. But if you got him mean, you may not be able to turn off his meanness.
I remember Charles Haley would stop taking his antidepressants in August because he was a meaner player in the fall. Let's hope nothing's going on like that. Portions of the program brought to you by...
I was talking about, but I was talking about Albert Hainsworth.
Oh, you're talking about Albert in particular?
Yeah, they tried to trigger him to get mean, and then he could go to, like, way too mean.
Yeah, it's called raking the claws of your cleats against somebody. The Hemp House, the premier hemp dispensary online with a wide variety, great selection, and strict standards to ensure you only receive the best in CBD or Delta products. If you're feeling like you're about to get mean, go to hemphousechatwith2ts.com, hemphousechatwith2ts.com, and use the promo code HOOK for 10% off. The promo code HOOK for 10% off. So I was going through this issue with a friend of the family, and it's having all kinds of Medicare issues. They recently decided to go Medicare, and it's like, what does this cover? What does other insurance, and what's coming in? Well, Medicare Misty will answer all those questions at no charge to you, whether it's for you or your loved one. If you're at the retirement age and you don't call Medicare Misty, I don't know what to tell you, because she's there to help you for no charge.
19 years this year. I've been in the community since 1993. You're getting a lot of information. Unlike when you were working, they made the choice for you. Now you have to make the choice. Come to us and let us help you make it easy. Call Medicare Misty, MedicareMisty.com or 423-777-5577. Let us help them sleep at night.
And we call her Medicare Misty.
Today's tough question. Take a side. Take a stand. The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of offthehooksports.com.
Are the Vols putting too much into 2024? And Caleb, I asked this question. You know I love you like a brother. I'm an only child, so I don't know what that feels like. That doesn't mean a lot. But I do love you like a brother. But you said something recently that I think borderlines on crazy Caleb conspiracy theory. This load up for 2024 that you keep throwing at me, that this is the year. If it's not this year, it's not going to happen. I think Tennessee is building a program where they're going to knock on the door continually. So I don't believe they're a load up program. But you think they're a load up program for 2024, maybe make a run like Clemson did a couple of times, or maybe TCU makes a run into the playoffs, or Cincinnati makes a run into the playoffs, but you don't think they can knock on that door perennially? Why?
No, I never said they can't knock on that door perennially.
I
said they're loading up. They loaded up for 2024 to make that the launching pad for Josh Heupel to be able to consistently get top 5 classes after that, with the credibility he'll have of winning a national championship in 2024. And so in case you forgot, I don't know where this whole Clemson good for a couple of years thing came from. Clemson went to the college football playoff every year from 2015 to 2020 and won 2 national titles in 4 years. Who's not taking that?
They're a little better than a little good. How about that?
I mean, Clemson's run was just as good as Georgia's run has been under Kirby Smart. It's exactly the same.
Yeah.
So no one would say good for a couple of years with Georgia. So loading up for 2024 is the launching pad for a run, whether that be 6 years, 8 years, 10 years. I mean, heck, Florida was only good for a couple of years with Urban Meyer. I bet they'll take those couple of years. So again, like when I say loading up for 2024, yeah, I'm not saying Tennessee will have an Alabama type run. So what? Who does? Like, no one ever has an Alabama type run except Alabama with 2 head coaches and Nick Saban and Bear Bryant. If you want that, you shoot for that, fine, but don't be disappointed if you don't get that. If you get a couple of national titles, you get a couple of national titles. And I think it all came down to Josh Heupel saw the roster, he saw the setup, he saw what was going on with 2024, and he made every decision meticulously with 2024 in mind, including finding ways to kick the new quarterbacks to the curb that he inherited in 2021, except for Hendon Hooker. Even things like when he went after Joe Milton. Dave, why did he go after Joe Milton? He meticulously looked at the class Milton's in, and he was thinking, okay, I want my quarterback, my handpicked quarterback out of high school, ready to go in 2024. So I want all these other quarterbacks out of eligibility by then. Heupel said yesterday some speed bumps on the way, quote unquote speed bumps. I felt that maybe was a self-admission that he didn't pick the right quarterback to transition to Nico, but he also talked about speed bumps on just things that he inherited. It's very
normally on that last thing that you said, I would play my favorite drop, which is
that's crazy.
But as I was driving into the studio, you said that this morning in our 3:45 a.m. production meeting. You said that. I think you're right. I think they thought Joe Milton was going to be significantly better. And oops.
Yes. Exactly.
I do. And I think even coming back last year, and I'm not going down the Joe Milton train because I get accused of ripping him all the time, which I don't do. Please hit the like and subscribe button if you don't mind. But I get the feeling that was the speed bump. I don't think there were a bunch of little speed bumps. I think there was one big, massive train trestle that you had to cross.
Yes, that they put in front of themselves.
Right, that they put in front of they lowered the train gate on themselves so they could sit there for a while. I don't want to be the I rip Joe Milton guy. Please, guys, tell me if I am. But I swear I think Caleb's right. I think that's what he's referring to. And when he first said it this morning, I thought it was crazy. I was ready to play the drop. But it's not. It's a hey now. You nailed it. You nailed it.
Yeah. Like the other speed bump that fell on him that wasn't Jeremy Pruitt's fault was I don't think he anticipated the injuries he had last year. Those couple of things. But Joe Milton, yeah. Those were the speed bumps. They're very clearly.
Was he saying, no, let me ask you this. Was he saying that the speed bump was I didn't have another quarterback ready? Or I thought that Joe was the guy and he wasn't ready?
I think the speed bump was he thought Joe was the guy and he wasn't. I think that was the major speed bump they put in front of themselves. Now,
Gaston Moore does indeed have a better year last year, Devin. You're right. I brought that up. A couple media members yesterday. They looked at me like I was crazy, and I was like, wow.
Yeah, I think you're on track for that.
Okay. Well, then, okay, everybody thinks that, but I think he would have had as good of a year. I think they would have run short slants, quick slants, other stuff. But anyway, let's move on. Tim Banks says it's the deepest defense he's had, or is Tennessee loading up too much for 2024?
Yeah, this is where it's, and we're going to talk about what the other people have said. This is very top down for Josh Heupel at this point, which is he's clearly put the pressure on everybody in the room to say, hey, this is our year, guys. Tim Banks volunteering that information. He's repeating things Josh Heupel was saying at SEC Media Days. I think it's filtering to the coaches and the players to expect this is our year. And I don't know if it's only a problem of loading up too much if the players aren't mentally tough enough to respond to it. Because I will say this, they're putting a lot of pressure on themselves. It kind of reminds me of, Dave, before you were covering Tennessee, you remember Peyton's junior year, right? where Peyton comes back. Tennessee was 11-1. They'd finished number 3. Peyton's coming back as a junior. Joey Kent's a senior. And everybody said, this is Tennessee's year. That's their year. And I think the pressure led to them falling behind 35-0 at Florida against Florida at home. Do you remember that? Didn't it just feel like the pressure they melted from it all in that first 20 minutes?
Yes. Does Tennessee have to load up for a 2024 another season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? Now, intrinsically, Tennessee is the type of program without a strong recruiting base, Caleb, where they have to be that load-up team, intrinsically. But I think Philip Fulmer proved and General Neyland proved that you can continue to knock on the door. Tennessee was knocking on the door in 2001. Tennessee was knocking on the door in 99. That was the Memphis game, correct? I mean, if the Memphis game doesn't happen, they're in, at least they're knocking on the door. I'm not talking.
No, that was 96. 96 was the Memphis game.
96, excuse me. So they're knocking on the door with Peyton Manning. And the point is they end up with a couple of championships, one in 98, a national title, and 2 SEC titles in 98 or 99. So there's nothing to be ashamed of for that. And they win the East in 2001. Nobody, I think, would turn down that title. Would you? Now, the other option is be relevant, not lane. That's my option. Does Tennessee have to load up for a season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? I think, and I'm changing my tune, Caleb. This is in the past 3 days with what they've done in recruiting. Now, I don't want to harp on recruiting too much. Everybody's like, oh, Dave covered recruiting. He thinks it's the most important. Well, it's because it is the most important thing in college football, period. So I've changed my tune in 3 years. I think they're building a dynasty that will knock on the door. I'm not saying they're going to win it 7 times like Saban, but they're going to knock on the door every single year. And it's not a load of, we got this special guy named Nico, and he's really, we got this special guy named George, and he was born in state, so you got a natural in. So let's all put this together. And this James Pierce turned out to him, he's better than ever. Let's load up for this year. This is the year. We'll see what happens in 2025. I don't think they're built like that. I think that a coach like Butch Jones, several other coaches built programs like that so that they could get another job. I think clearly Josh Heupel loves the University of Tennessee, and he's going to stay here. So I think he wants to build a long-term relevant program.
But I think he loaded up for Tennessee for 2024 to launch in a 10-year run. He is recruiting well right now. But Dave, if Tennessee goes 8-4 this year, you're going to see a wave of decommitments, right, from this class. You just will. And so I've covered teams that had that. Butch Jones had a top 5 class in 2017. He was favored to win the East in 2016. The second he lost his 3rd game in 2016, the decommits and the transfers started, and the program was never going to recover after that. So it's
okay. I want to say one thing. I'm around coaches a lot, and I don't think they lead up as often as you think for the load up year. However, don't think for a second that a coach doesn't go down a schedule and say, Chattanooga, that's a win. NC State, that's a win. Alabama, that's a swing game. They do all of that stuff that we do too. They do the exact same thing. I've been with coaches while they've done that. Okay, they've gone through. That's going to be a toughie, and blah blah blah. So I don't think that Josh Heupel is thinking this is my shot, but I do think there's some load up factor. There's a little bit, and here's the strongest factor to your point. If you're not loading up for this year, you don't pay an Omari or a Cooper to come back for another year. You take your chances with another group of dudes, right?
That's very true. You are. That's why I was saying he's loading up for this year, because he was focused on keeping all of those guys that he could get. And
because I guarantee you that cash spent cost him a 4 or 5 star on the trail.
Oh,
I'd rather have a proven starter, but there's another guy out there that would have taken a $5 million check to come to Tennessee, and that would have been maybe the number 1 pick or the number 1 overall prospect in the nation. I don't even know where that guy went or who he is. You could have done that. You could have kept building this NIL excitement and not taking care of Cooper and not taking care of Omari, and they go to the NFL. You could have done that.
Well, here's where it gets even bigger. So, see, this is where I'm breaking with you. The greatest coach in history loaded up twice. Nick Saban at Michigan State loaded up for that 99 year where they went 9-2 so he could get another job, and it worked. And at LSU, he loaded up for 2003. Go back and look at exactly how he built LSU up until that point. The first thing Nick Saban did when he went to LSU was he took Matt Malk, who was committed to him at Michigan State, took him with him to LSU. He was building for 2003 with his recruiting classes and what he was doing. And he was saying, this is my year.
See, to me, and Caleb, maybe we're different here. There's a negative connotation to loading up. Like loading up for a year makes me think that you don't have the long term in mind. So maybe you think that's a perfectly neutral or positive connotation. What's your stand? I mean, to me, loading up, I see it in high school all the time. I got a lot of high school coaches friends, and I see it all the time. They're like, this is the year that I can really win and get a better job. I mean, I don't think that Josh Heupel is thinking in that regard at all.
Well, okay, you're thinking loading up like the way the Marlins won the 97 World Series.
Yes. Whereas, okay, the Yankees, they spend too much money. But the Yankees are always trying to win it every year. I don't think – I mean, to me, Virginia Tech is a better example than Clemson of a program that was trying to load up and win it with Mike Vick. I don't think Tennessee is going to be that type of program where they fall off the map after Nico's gone.
No, but here's where I think they're loading up, and this is what I mean with loading up. They're not saying.
This is, by the way, my favorite conversation I think we've ever had. Go ahead, and I want to hear you from the message board too. I want to hear you from.
They're not throwing away the future. Here's how they're loading up. If they got some NIL cash and they say, or they have a scholarship available, they're like, I'd rather have this good player for 2024 than shoot for this 5-star for 2025. That's how Josh Heupel is loading up. He's prioritizing it. Think of the NFL. It's basically saying, I'm going to take my chances with this known commodity at quarterback and put a team around him rather than go for the risk of this number 1 pick next year and see if I can build a future.
Can I ask you something crazy?
Sure.
So they're loading up in what ways? They're loading up with a $2 million quarterback 2 years ago or 3 years ago when he committed, right?
Yep.
That's a load up.
That's a load up.
That's as big of a load up as they go. That's keep shoveling onto the cart. Don't worry if the mule's blind. All right. So that's a load up. The other load up, which made a lot more sense, is keeping Cooper and keeping Omari Thomas. You will one day get that fixed. I haven't done that in like 8 months. Okay. I was keeping track of that one. Would Tennessee be better off with Nico this season or Cooper and Thomas? I tell you what, we're going to tease that through a break. I got Caleb thinking. I want to tell you about my good buddy, Don Self, State Farm. Customer service still matters. For 40 years, they built their business on taking care of their customers in the greater Chattanooga area. Call 423-396-2126 or go to donself.net, right below donself.net, and he'll push you towards the right State Farm agent if he's not the guy. He's in the Chattanooga and Ottawa area. So you're loading up, but you're Josh Heupel. You're sitting at your desk, and somebody and Russ Tastic. Yes, I'm saying Tennessee is loading up for a dynasty, and I think they're going to be knocking at the door. But some people think they're just loading up for this particular season.
But this is the launching pad,
right? And I know I'm painting you in the corner a little bit, but sometimes I get an impression like you'd be okay with Tennessee playing for an SEC title and falling apart next year as long as they showed a major improvement. I may be putting words in your mouth.
No.
But, okay, no. That's not the case.
I'm saying they are loading up for this year to be the launching pad, where then they will be relevant and year in and year out thinking about a national title for, I don't know, 6, 7, I don't know, however long Josh Heupel is here, like, or in Knoxville. But if I say 6, 7, 8 years, like, again, that's the Clemson way. And people think like that's, I don't know why everybody acts like it's so demeaning to do the Clemson way. Clemson's got 2 national titles in the last decade. Only 2 other programs have that. Spoiler alert, only 2 other programs have multiple national titles in the last decade. Clemson's one of them. This idea that like it's a failure unless you do like multiple 4 national titles over a 20-year span. Dave, you don't think every Tennessee fan in the world would take 2 national titles in 6 years?
Yes. Caleb, I think you're sidestepping the question that I asked earlier.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here it is.
Say wham.
All right. It is this. Would you rather have Nico headed into the season, or would you rather have Omari Thomas and Cooper Mace?
Say wham.
Okay. This is the hardest thing I'm ever going to have to answer.
By the way, latest on the poll questions: does Tennessee have to load up for 2024, another season, or will they be relevant for 10 years? Load up for a title, 43% of the vote. Be relevant, not lane. Okay, what do you got?
If there were any other good quarterback, I would say Cooper and Amari, because I think being a good quarterback in Heupel's system is a dime a dozen, because he can make a lot of quarterbacks. It's like if it were Hendon Hooker, I would say give me Cooper Mace and Amari. Nico Iamaleava is the one rare exception. I wouldn't trade Nico Iamaleava playing for Josh Heupel for any player in college football history.
Not even a guy like Dylan Gabriel that's proved he can run a similar type of system.
I would take Nico Iamaleava playing for Josh Heupel over having Herschel Walker at Georgia in 1980. Over having Bo Jackson at Auburn in 85 or 86. Over having, we talked about this yesterday with John, over having Peyton Manning with David Cutcliffe in the 90s. I would take over having Johnny Manziel with Kevin Sumlin, or over having Tommy Frazier with Nebraska. I'm telling you, I would take, there is not Nico the player by himself, but Nico Iamaleava playing under Josh Heupel, there is not a player I would take over him in the history of college football.
Okay. And so for the record, you're going to take Nico over Cooper Mays and Omari Thomas.
I would take Nico under Josh Heupel over Cam Newton in college. Over Michael Vick at Virginia Tech.
I'm going to say Cooper would undermine Nico. Everybody seems to be Nico on the message board, and you can vote on our YouTube page, Nico, or you get to choose from Omari and Cooper Mace. Now, the thing,
am I going way out on a limb here, Dave, with my expectations for Nico? Like having the most productive season in college football history?
Because I think I've on the fly come up with one of the best questions ever. So I'm still processing a little bit.
The question is, Cooper Mays and Omari Thomas are the greatest college football season ever by an individual.
Well, Mead asked why we haven't covered Heupel's presser. We did. That was yesterday, or no? He's talking today as a post practice press conference. We'll have his thoughts a little bit later on offthehooksports.com. And we did discuss Ethan Davis and the impact that he could have this upcoming year. The question I have is, I hope not pertinent at all, but it may be, and that is Tennessee's backup quarterback. Is it definitely Merklinger, or the fact that Gaston is at media days? Is there a bit of a debate there? You give me 2 minutes. Hang tight. He's Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Fifth year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that. If we wouldn't put our family in it, we're not going to put their family in it. If you're going to say that you're doing the best work in Knoxville, now saying it's one thing, producing it and providing it's another.
The largest family-owned collision center in Knoxville is Joe Neubert Collision Center.
Hi, I'm Rick Terry, and we at Rick Terry Jewelry Designs pride ourselves in the highest quality craftsmanship from a family-owned business here in Knoxville for over 35 years. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we also take pride in being an affordable option for all your game day accessories, especially those fire opals. At Rick Terry Jewelry Designs, we want to be your jeweler every day and especially on game day. Go Vols!
Hi, Mike Davis here with City Heating and Air, reminding you to always dare to compare. Our team provides quality local heating and air service, installation, and maintenance across East Tennessee. We use only the best equipment like American Standard heating and air conditioning for your residential, new construction, or commercial needs. Honesty, dependability, and customer satisfaction have been the cornerstones of our business since 1961. City Heat and Air.
Dare to compare.
23 F-150 Super Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985.
24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorney. Play to win, banksjones.com.
You're listening to The Dave Hooker Show, a presentation of OffTheHookSports.com.
The internet is full of pictures of each and every one of you.
Available on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the Off the Hook Sports app. Download now for free.
Is there nothing you people can't do?
Also available on OffTheHookSports.com.
Boy, there are a lot of people who think that Caleb's stupid and think that I'm stupid because we have fired up a little bit of a disagreement on the message board, which is fine. That's what we're here to do. To ask the hard questions, think the tough thoughts. What's something else I could say? Tackle the tough issues or something. There we go. So the Derek says, I'll take the lineman, talking about would you take Amari Hand or would you take
Amari Thomas? You did it again.
Amari Thomas or Cooper Mays over Nico. Derek says, I'll take the lineman. A lot of people, though, taking Caleb's point. As a matter of fact, look at this from Rustastic. You get a big shout out. Is today National Caleb Calhoun Day? He's on point. There should be a National Calhoun Day. How about that? How about a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame? Did you know that's surprisingly easy to do?
Yes, I did, actually.
Yeah, all I have to do, you could have one. All I have to do is get like a group of a few people to put together like $5,000 donation or something stupid easy.
How about this? Scotland sells like a square foot of like just public land that you're able to like buy that for like real cheap, and you can declare yourself a lord if you do that. How about Lord Caleb Calhoun?
Have you heard of the guy in Chattanooga who signed up with this guy to build swords, toy swords that he would sell? And the guy the guy was writing this little book, and the book became a movie. So this guy sold so many swords that he never touched for like $15,000 in Japan, and they're a bunch of plastic. He built a castle in southern Chattanooga. You may have heard of the show. It's called Game of Thrones.
Really?
He had the rights to Google castle in Chattanooga, Game of Thrones. He built a castle on a mountain in the middle of nowhere. My son was invited to one of his birthday parties, and it was like, come to Sir Luke's birthday party. It was like pretentious, and sure enough, he had a castle.
Don't you love American capitalism?
I don't know. The castle may have seemed a little over the top. Tennessee, yes. Tennessee's backup quarterback situation. We all know that the Vols are in great shape with Nico. But what happens if the Vols have to go to their second string quarterback? I found it very interesting that Tennessee brought out Jake Merklinger and Gaston Moore yesterday to a media session. Most of us on the outside looking in would say Gaston Moore not as physically gifted, not as good. He is not going to be the starter, but yet he was out there visiting with the media. Caleb, what were your thoughts?
I think this was a move to put pressure on Jake Merklinger, because I think they're very upset with Jake Merklinger having not developed into the type of backup quarterback they need him to be for the year. I don't know why. I can speculate. And Dave, I'm just going to throw this out here. And this may not, you would say crazy Caleb conspiracy, but maybe this is just Caleb conspiracy. So tell me if it's crazy. Jake Merklinger commits to Tennessee. He figures he's going to be Nico's backup, and then he'll be the guy in the future, right? That's probably what he's thinking.
Okay. I'm not taking that leap of faith with you, but I want to follow in your argument. I think any competitor comes to a school like Tennessee and thinks he's going to beat out Nico.
No, maybe he does think he's.
You and I both know that's stupid, but go ahead.
Okay. What if Jake Merklinger then sees that hype went after George McIntyre? Now we know he's going after Faison Brandon. And Merklinger says, you know what? I'm not even going to be on this team at the end of this year. I'm leaving. And so he decides, I don't even care. I'm not going to practice hard. I'm not going to focus on trying to be the best I can be. because what is it all for? And what if that has caused an issue for backup quarterback?
Okay. I don't. Here are my thoughts. I don't agree with the reasoning and how you get to where you got, but I agree with where you got. And I think the reason he showed up, he's like, God, dang, this Nico is like another level. I really believe that has happened. And I've said that I think he's at another level from the get. So I'm not breaking from tradition on that. I also think he showed up and he thought players get hurt in football, right? And you're not banking on an injury, but a quarterback in Tennessee's offense historically has gotten hurt. Joe Milton got hurt. Hendon Hooker got hurt. It happens. So he's thinking maybe I'll play there. But then you look at Gaston Moore, who, guys, you can make fun of his athletic ability all you want to, but I'm telling you, the kid could run this offense. And you say, man, he's got a better grasp of this offense than I do. I may be able to throw it further. I may be a little bit more accurate, but I'm not going to overcome what is essentially an entire college career head start under Josh Heupel. I think he realizes that he's the odd man out within 2 weeks of him showing up on campus.
At which point Tennessee is stuck with the equivalent of having Joey Matthews as their backup in 1999. I'm sorry, that was a mean shot at Joey Matthews. I shouldn't have done that.
Well, Joey Matthews, was torn apart because they didn't protect the quarterback in spring practice. But I get it. He would have been a very good quarterback. What you want him to do is show up like Peyton Manning, who was behind Colquitt, Jerry Colquitt, not one of the kickers. And that's what you want. And he worked as hard as he was, and he was ready to run out there. I haven't received any negative information on Jake Merklinger, but I haven't received any positive information that he's up and ready to go either.
It's totally different with Peyton Manning and Jerry Colquitt. That was Nico Iamaleava and Joe Milton. Because Peyton Manning was the 5-star. There weren't stars at the time, but you get it. He was the highly touted recruit. Jerry Colquitt was a senior, and it's like, oh, Peyton Manning will be the guy the next year, or Brandon Stewart. That was Nico and Joe, where Nico was the 5-star, Joe Milton was a senior. Jake Merklinger would be like, if you get Peyton Manning 1 year, and then the very next year you get Todd Helton. I'm like, who is a solid quarterback who you could trust, but it's like Nico was amazing and he was a 5-star. What was Jake Merklinger thinking committing as a year behind a 5-star when he is a more lowly touted recruit?
Well, I'll tell you what I thought, and you'll put yourself in this position for long as a parent. I thought, good for you, son. You're not afraid of competition, but my head thought, I don't know if that's the best fit for you. So unless like grandma lived in Knoxville, which I think those personal decisions should be a factor because you're more likely to have success if you have a support system. So unless there was a tie to Tennessee that I wasn't aware about, I would have thought that's possibly the worst pick you could have possibly ever made.
Yes, I think that could have been the worst pick too.
Maybe, I mean, other than going to, I can't even think of somebody that has somebody in that's set to be the starter for 2 years or possibly 3.
What if this is happening? Now, this would throw a wrench in what I'm saying, but because I still believe that Jake Merklinger knows he's not going to be there, so he's not really even caring. But the reason that's not smart.
He didn't seem like he cared a lot yesterday, just to be real honest with you. I hate to read body language and stuff, but it didn't seem overly enthused to be there.
Well, what if this is the case? It could be the opposite, or it should be. If you're Merklinger, maybe you get to play in Heupel's offense for a year because Nico goes down, or you get mop-up duty and you light it up in mop-up duty because you're in Heupel's offense. And it's because you lit it up in mop-up duty, you can command a lot of NIL money on the transfer portal market to go somewhere else.
I agree. And with his physical ability, I don't think he has to necessarily perform to get good money on the transfer market. I think he just says, look, I'm behind a generational quarterback. I can still play. My question is, does his attitude change? And help me with the timeline on this of George McIntyre committing. I wonder if, and we're not going to know if his mindset changed, but also Faison Brandon. Was he promised that you're the next guy behind Nico, just sit 2 years and that guy's going to go to the NFL? And then you see McIntyre and Faison, who we think is going to commit to Tennessee as the number one prospect in the country. You know, if I'm looking at that and I've been made any recruiting promises, and I know these promises were made a lot under previous coaching staffs I covered, Butch, but I don't know if they've been made under Heupel. But if they were, that could definitely undermine what you're doing with your quarterback situation and with what Merklinger thinks about his standing in your mind. But if you were just to absolutely bet on one guy that ends up being the odd man out, it's got to be Merklinger. I don't see it being McIntyre. And if Faison ends up committed to Tennessee, you're going to see a similar type of excitement to where Nico was. Instead, it's going to be more like Bryce Young. Do you remember Bryce Young when he came along and everybody said, "Oh, well, they get better at quarterback"? We're saying that. We're saying that now, you and me, but nobody really believes us because they think we're probably Tennessee homers, and they're not aware of how much I talk to people in the program. So that got to past the point of, oh, you're just a homer. So when Faison comes around, you should be thinking to yourself, oh, there's no question he's going to step in and be a successful quarterback because that guy Nico did it already, right?
Yes, no, you're right. Absolutely. I mean, it's going to be a factor of just elite quarterback play. And it is, here's the other part with Merklinger. You don't think it got to his head that everybody's talking about McIntyre and the recruiting and things like that? And it's like people are so high on McIntyre and people are passing over him. It's almost like, did y'all ever see the movie 61 where Roger Maris was clearly like, okay, you're Roger Maris and you're Mickey Mantle's teammate, and everybody hates you because they want Mickey Mantle to beat you in the record chase that year, even though y'all are both playing for the same team and the home crowd's rooting against you. I wonder if Merklinger kind of feels that because of all the McIntyre talk.
I'll tell you the way I'd feel with Merklinger is there's not a great opportunity for short-term success. As a matter of fact, there's no opportunity for short-term success other than an injury. And then I would look at long-term success. I got serious question marks. So would I be better off with my ability going to, and I'm not saying he should transfer, but listen, if they feel higher on Gaston Moore than they do Merklinger, then that's got to be a big red flag. Now, somebody asked a question earlier, General Nealon. I'm watching from earlier, but you can't bring up charges if they're dismissed and call them a red flag. Get your mind right, Caleb. I want to address that real quick because I assume he's talking about James Pierce and the traffic charges that he was involved in. They were dismissed, but I do think it's still a red flag, Caleb, whenever you don't immediately respond to police orders. And that was the case in the issue report. So do I think it's a major red flag? No, I think it's a little tiny red flag, but I think it's something to keep your eye on.
People need to learn the difference between what would be a red flag used against you in court and would be a red flag used against you just when you're having to assess someone's character.
Agreed.
Would I say that, yeah, you could say charges were dismissed, so it should never be used against James Pierce in court. Fine. If he's in court for anything else ever again, no one should ever bring up that stuff in court. We're not putting James Pierce on trial. We're talking about James Pierce. Are there issues there on just a broad judging of the character? And yes, that's a red flag. But like it's put it this way. I'm gonna go way more morbid, and I want to be very clear. I'm not like.
Oh no.
No. Here, put it this way.
Yeah, it's gonna be a tough sponsor. It's gonna be a tough sponsor transition. Do I have to say Beetlejuice 3 times?
No, but if there's a person in your neighborhood who dates a lot of younger women that are of age but are significantly younger, you won't have any proof that they may be dating underage women, but you're certainly not going to let your daughter hang around him, right?
No. Like, I may have watched a documentary on making a boy bands last night, which is oddly
one.
Yeah, oddly similar.
Yeah.
No proof he did anything wrong, but it's not
there's red flags.
It's not something I want my family to be around. It's not like I'm going to say, hey, my son has nothing to do today. He's 14. Can he come hang out at your house?
And you know, if the person, if I said to you, you should let him go, this person has no charges. Therefore, there are no red flags just because they have no charges. Or put it this way. What if that person was charged for something and then the charges were dropped? You're going to be like, oh yeah, I'd let my son go to their house even though the charges were dismissed. Like, would you send your kid to Michael Jackson's house just because he was acquitted of child molestation? No.
So this is an incredible stretch, but it is fair. Caleb may have had too much caffeine today, but it is fair to call that a red flag. I just wanted to address that because I didn't think that was fair to Caleb. I mean, that if that's not a red flag, guys, I don't know what is, because I've seen smaller red flags that have led to big flags. I'm not saying this one will. I stand by. And if anybody tells you I'm worried about James Pierce not showing up to media days, I'm worried about James Pierce not being out there as much, I'm just going to tell you I'm defending James Pierce. So say Dave Hooker, who talks to people in the football office, James Pierce is going through a tough time, and James Pierce is going to be a very good football player, and James Pierce is going to be fine. You're not going to read a bunch of quotes by James Pierce. I'm as disappointed by that as you, but I want the young man to have a fantastic future at Tennessee and beyond. So I'm cool with not having quotes or awesome clicks when he talks to the media on our YouTube page. By the way, click and subscribe on our YouTube page. Also, we would highly encourage you to join Hooker's Corner. At Hooker's Corner, you can win monthly prizes. And today's our big day where we're giving away the prize. So if you sign up now, I can still get you on board. You can click on that QR code right there. We've got recruiting information, prizes, and more. And it is a John Henderson autographed helmet that we're giving away today. I'm going to turn the autograph part right there so you can see it for our video platform peeps. And you can win that today. We'll have a drawing for that just a little bit later in the program. It's all brought to you by our good friends at Sports Treasures. And I can't thank you enough for our relationship with our friends at Sports Treasures, carrying over 5 million Sports Treasures. And so nice to be able to provide our awesome gifts, which have included Tony Vitello autographed baseballs and more. We've had a fantastic relationship with Sports Treasures. We absolutely love them. Please support our sponsors and tell them that Off the Hook Sports and Dave Hooker sent you. Is Tennessee relying too much on transfers? That's a question we probably should have asked ourselves last year, but we didn't. So we're going to do it this year. Hang tight with Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker, Off the Hook Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX, $45,985. 24 Ford Escape, $30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT, $32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co.? What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOKED. That's hooked when I do, to save an additional 10% off. TriStarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys.
Excuse me, Your Honor.
Play to win, banksjones.com.
Who's this guy?
Hello, wizard.
The Dave Hooker Show,
Who?
a presentation of Off the Hook Sports,
What?
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
Caleb always scares me when he's smiling. If you would like to celebrate 98, read about the untold stories behind the Tennessee Vols 1998 National Championship, you can QR code it right there. Please buy from me. We have autographed copies available by Fred White and more. So those are all available if you go to offthehooksports.com, click on our merch shop, or go to that QR code right there. Autographed copies as well. Make great presents. So just tell me who you want it autographed to, and I'll take care of you. Thank you to our friend at Sports Treasures also for carrying the book. Caleb, what were you smiling about? Because the message board comment had me smiling as well.
I'm just loving the message board right now. I'm just having a lot of fun. Yeah, the whole no red flag. Apparently, if you're not convicted of something, then there's no red flag surrounding you.
Yeah. Derek says, I'm sure they told JP, James Pierce, to not even date this year. I don't take any chances. Could you go 6 months without dating, without seeing a woman like Rocky did? Because it's bad for the legs. Could you do that if you knew you had a multi-million-dollar contract right around the corner?
I mean, okay. Without dating or without engaging in any activity? Those are two different things.
No women. You got to give up women altogether.
I don't think if you're a college football superstar, is that possible?
Well, no, but I'm asking you, could Caleb do it?
I mean, I have a newborn, so it's like
I don't want the specifics of where this is going. I'm just going to ask this question. It is this. The poll question is, could you give up women for 6 months to be a millionaire?
Yeah, I probably could. I probably could do it.
It scares me how long it took you to think about that.
But you weren't saying it that way. You were like, could you do it? I'm saying, yeah, I probably could give it away for 6 months to become a millionaire. I could. But then at the same time, what if you don't have to? Like you're serious, you don't have to give up women.
Well, those people are cooler than us.
And also not having women if he does have an anxiety problem, not being with the woman could make his anxiety worse. Although being with a woman can also make your anxiety worse. So it really depends. So
they say. I was rolling there with confidence. What is more important this season? Nico gets 72%. Cooper Mays and Omari Thomas get 27%. We combined them together, and it wasn't even close. I dropped this team a loss and a half if they don't have Cooper Mays. If they weren't have Cooper Mays for the year. I mean, Nico needs Cooper to be successful, as Joe points out. Absolutely on it there. So here we go. Tennessee relying heavily on transfers. This is always scary to me for the past 25 years, but I'm changing my mindset on it. So do you remember a guy by the name, he coached at Mississippi State, a guy by the name of Jackie Sherrill? Do you remember him?
Oh, yes. And trust me, people and Memphis Tiger fans do too, because he and Tommy West had a great post-game exchange one time. It's hilarious.
They did. Yes. He was the guy that reloaded his team year to year with junior college players. I mean, if you looked at his most 10 impactful players, 6 were junior college year to year. And eventually they blew up and it didn't work out. So is Josh Heupel relying too much on transfers? Let's look back to last year. Dante Thornton did not pan out. Keenan Pili did not pan out, not his fault. How did they do last year on transfers before we project forward a little bit?
Oh, yeah, they failed last year on transfers. They failed miserably. Dante Thornton banged up. Keenan Pili banged up. Andre Carrick just flat out was terrible. I mean, that was
average.
No, he was terrible. He was horrible. Check out his PFF grades. He was an absolute disaster at left guard. But they hit on two. They hit on two. John Campbell Jr. and Omar Norman Lott. And those would have been the last two I would have thought they would have hit on, by the way. Funny enough. But they hit on
So
both.
they're batting roughly 30%. Does that get you in the Hall of Fame of transfers? It get you in the Hall of Fame of the Major League Baseball?
I don't know. I feel like your transfer percentage has to be like your free throw percentage in the NBA. I feel like you judge it on a free throw percentage scale more than you do a hitting percentage scale.
Probably more like Shaq free throw percentage for me. I'm good at 60 to 70, but you want to see it 90. You want to see it 90, which is good. I appreciate that. I just don't think that's doable. But I think it is doable because the way Tennessee's recruiting in high school, I think they're going to know these kids. And I made mention of that before. Caleb, I think that helps Tennessee when you call a Bob Jones in Utah and you already know that he's a good fit for your character. You've just seen him grow 3 inches and you've seen him add 20 pounds of muscle. So Bob Jones, come on down, and you feel really good about it. So it's not as if Derek, and I want to make this point, it's not as if Derek Dooley could have extended his career by the transfer portal because he didn't recruit enough high school players to know them and make good, well-educated decisions when it came to the transfer portal. Does that make sense, Caleb?
Yeah. No, I mean, well, which is weird because Derek Dooley had that, isn't the thing that held him back in recruiting was he had that insanely long evaluation process that made him so hesitant to offer anybody?
I don't know if that was it or it was just insanely lazy.
I didn't think he was lazy. I thought he just prioritized things wrong.
Whatever the case may be, you got to make the drive to see Von Bell in Chattanooga, right?
Yes, I think he didn't get finished, and this is the thing. He didn't get finished evaluating Von Bell in time. That's where that comes from. He had an insanely long, thorough evaluation process that was just there was one kid, I think it may have been Jalen Ramsey, where it was they were ready, that you covered Jalen Ramsey, so you may know this, but my understanding was Dooley did have a shot, but wanted to wait till he saw his 40 time in real time before he actually made an offer.
I was the first to interview Jalen Ramsey about being a prospect, and he didn't even mention Tennessee.
Okay, maybe it wasn't Jalen Ramsey. There was another kid. It was a highly touted kid. Maybe it was Von Bell, but it was somebody that Dooley hadn't offered. And it was a highly touted kid, but Dooley wanted to wait until he saw him run the 40 in person offer.
Okay.
And it's everybody else is already offering this kid. And that was Dooley waiting to see until he saw
He could have called me. I made time to watch him run the 40 in person. All right. So a couple of other guys that hit last year, I thought Castles.
McCullen Castles. That was
McCullen Castles hit really well. So let's look at who they're looking at this year. Transfers coming in this year.
And the reason this is relevant is they basically named them all yesterday, specifically.
Yes. So you think to get it started, I'll tell you what, let's just go ahead and do a 4 down since I dropped the ball in that earlier. 4 downs is brought to you by our good friend at Ray Varner Ford. Jimmy Himes joins us every Wednesday. He is out of town this week, but he'll join us next Wednesday. 4 downs.
4 downs. 4 questions. 4 answers. The Dave Hooker Show. 4 downs. A presentation of offthehooksports.com.
All right, Coop, let's get it started. It's brought to you by Ray Varner Ford, as that is the intro, but we'll go right here to Coop getting us started.
Cooper Mays here. Hit like and subscribe.
Thank you. What down, Coop?
Coop here. First down.
Do you think Josh Heupel has learned from last year's recruiting misses in the transfer portal to be a better transfer portal coach this year?
No, because I can't say they were misses yet last year because they're all back this year, the ones that I say were misses. And 2 of them were injury issues.
So despite you poking fun at him, you think he did a pretty good job last year?
I'm saying it's an incomplete.
Okay. If you had a bet and you have to give him a B+ or a D-, what would that class end up?
I'd go B+ at that point. I mean, Keenan Peely was taken to SEC Media Days this year, and we didn't get to see how he was last year. Another transfer we forgot about last year, by the way, was Gabe Giuliani, who worked out for exactly what they wanted him to do.
Yeah, very versatile, want to play.
Yes.
I think that's the kid from a personality standpoint and a character standpoint you keep on your team as long as you can. What down, Coop?
Cooper Mays here. Second down.
All right. So Tennessee's transfers this year are whom?
And I'm going to name the ones that were specifically shouted out.
Well, can we get them all too? Can we go ahead and do we have them all?
Yeah, well, the ones that are relevant, but the ones shouted out were Lance Hurd was shouted out on offense. Joey Halsley did not give off great signs, by the way, that Lance Hurd was really picking up the offense. He kept talking about the adjustments for Lance Hurd. That's a bit of a concern.
May I say something that sounds rude?
Sure.
I'm not listening to what Joey Halsley says anymore.
Okay.
I mean, it's Josh Heupel's offense. I got up and left during Joey Halsley's press conference.
Wow. Dave has no respect. Dave just wants Joey Halsley.
No, I don't.
Dave treats Joey Halsley the way I treat punters.
No, I've got other things to do. I've got other things to do than sit there through a 20-minute press conference saying the same thing that Josh Heupel just said 20 minutes earlier.
But his name sounds very similar to one of the greatest singers of our time, Halsey.
He might end up being the best coach ever, but right now, for lack of a better term, he's Josh Heupel's puppet, and there's nothing wrong with that. Being a puppet of Josh Heupel's could make you millions and millions of dollars a year. Ask Alex Golish. Just know your place and learn and bring something to the table occasionally.
Cooper Mays here.
Wait, are we not going? Oh, before we're going to the next down, are we not just going to reel out the transfers?
Reel out the transfer. Sorry, that was my finger slipped.
On offense, still, again, he was cagey, but Miles Kitzman and Holden Stays. The standouts were on defense because Jackson Moy was volunteered, and basically Tim Binks said he loved his versatility, immediately made it clear he thinks that basically implied he thinks that Jackson Moy is going to start, and then went out of his way to tout the 3 transfers in the secondary: Jamon McCoy, Jalen McMurray, Jacoby Thomas. I think it's very clear all 3 of those guys are going to start.
Tennessee center Cooper Mays here. 3rd down.
The best transfer on defense will be
Jamon McCoy. He's the all SEC caliber cornerback.
It's Jackson Moy. He'll start.
They're all going to start.
Yeah, but that's saying something to come start in the SEC.
They're all going to come and start in the SEC.
Okay. We heard it here first. We were higher on Jackson Moy than most people, correct?
Correct.
We like Jackson Moy.
All SEC center Cooper Mays here. 4th down.
Best player on offense transfer will be
by default Lance Hurd, but it has to be Lance Hurd. If it's not Lance Hurd, there's a big issue. I didn't hear Chris Brazel's name mentioned yesterday, funny enough, and I thought I heard more of him in spring.
That's funny. You didn't hear him. I did hear a lot. I heard him ask about, but that doesn't mean that that is strange that nothing was offered up about him. Now
I told you he was going to get buried in the depth chart with these receivers this year.
Okay. Well, it's easy to do. And Josh Heupel's.
I told you Mike Matthews would take that spot at the number 2 spot because Mike Matthews is just too generationally great.
Portions of the program, as I mentioned, as always, on Wednesday, brought to you by our good friend Ray Varner Ford. He brings you Jimmy Hobbs' appearance each and every Wednesday. Jimmy on vacation. Enjoy it, Jimmy. As we'll talk to Jimmy next week. Ray Varner Ford and Tennessee with a huge commitment. Discussing next off the Sports.
Cab 4x4 STX 45,985. 24 Ford Escape 30,962. 24 Ford Maverick XLT 32,720. Ray Varner Ford, your East Tennessee Ford dealership.
Sports Treasures in North Knoxville is one of the South's largest sports cards and memorabilia dealers, featuring over 10 million sports cards from vintage to modern. Sports Treasures carries a full line of hobby boxes, singles, autographed memorabilia, Tennessee Vol collectibles, fan cave decorations, and so much more. See a museum full of collectibles at Sports Treasures, 4819 North Broadway in Fountain City, and Sports Treasures on Facebook. Sports Treasures, where the real sports fan goes to shop.
Have you seen the latest TriStar Hats Co. product?
TriStar Hats Co. What's that?
You know, those really cool hats, shirts, tumblers, and even license plates with 3 stars like the official Tennessee flag and stripes like the American flag. Pretty patriotic if you ask me.
Ah, gotcha. Seen those. Those are cool. Where can I get them?
Simple. TriStarHatsCo.com. And if you order now, there's 10% on any order $50 or more. Plus, use the promo code HOOKED.
With the promo code HOOKED, you get 10% off. That's hooked.
And don't forget free shipping with any order over $50. Stock up at TriStarHatsCo.com. That's TriStarHatsCo.com. There are plenty of wannabes out there, so make sure you go to TriStarHatsCo.com for the best quality and customer service.
Will do, and I'll be sure to use the promo code HOOK. That's hooked when I do to save an additional 10% off. TristarHatsCo.com.
TriStar Hats Co. is a trademark of TriStar Hats Co. LLC. Any use without express written consent is prohibited.
Now in its 45th year, the second and third generations continue Joe Neubert's commitment.
His vision of what this business needed to be, we still try to live up to that.
Joe Neubert Collision Center.
That's hot.
They're like, that is total bullshit.
The Dave Hooker Show, represented by Banks & Jones, Tennessee's trial attorneys. Play to win, banksjones.com.
He tries very hard. The Dave Hooker Show.
All I know is when we win a game, it's a team win. When we lose a game, it's a team loss.
A presentation of Off the Hook Sports.
Sideline! Touchdown! Unbelievable!
YouTube, Apple, Spotify, and the free Off the Hook Sports app. Back to Dave Hooker.
All right,
why does Peyton Manning disagree that that's hot?
I don't know. I just want to hit those two buttons together. I thought it sounded neat.
I'm just curious, like, what did Paris Hilton think was hot that Peyton Manning said that's total BS? That's not hot.
I don't know what they were disagreeing about. It wouldn't have been our good friends at Neubert Collision Center because they're definitely hot. Vols with the big.
About Tom Brady's looks. That's what it is.
That's what it was. Vols with the big recruiting pickup. Let's talk about it. Vol Twitter. The latest pickup as Tennessee just keeps rolling in recruiting.
Yeah, so Tennessee picked up in the midst of media days, Tennessee picked up another commitment Tuesday night. Darrion Smith Jr. out of St. Francis Academy in Baltimore, Maryland, committed to the Vols. He's 6'2", 265 pounds. He is a 3-star across the board, so he's not making the same splash everybody else has been making. However, he did commit to Tennessee over Ohio State. And that stands out. Ohio State wanted this kid. What also stands out is the fact that Rodney Garner recruited this kid heavily. Rodney Garner really wanted this kid, apparently. Rodney Garner has connections to the St. Francis Academy in Baltimore school. I think they see a lot more potential in this kid than his star rating show. I don't know if they see him as a more hybrid defensive lineman, the 3 technique and 5 technique guy, which I told you about. They always want a guy who can play 3 technique and 5 technique. I actually think that's what they might expect out of Jackson Boyd this year, Dave, funny enough. And I think that's who they're going for with this kid, which would mean even if you're going to do that, you still probably got to get to a base of 280, right? Like, you don't have to be 300, but you got to be in the 280 range if you can play.
If they want him to be on the nose, I think it'd be really nice for him to be 300 or 300 plus. And
but they would also be able to play 5 technique and 3 technique.
Yeah, right. And I think Omari Thomas is the guy who plays on the nose more oftentimes than not, and he's 300 plus. So yes. I think you would like that, and you would like to have some ability on pass rushing downs to have some flexibility to line somebody up on the nose or in the A and B gap. So I think, I think you're onto something. I think this guy is kind of like a place kicker. I think he's a specialty guy. He is there to take up blocks. I don't know that he's there to be a disruptor. It'd be great if he was, but I think he's there to take up blocks and allow other people to make plays. And that's essentially what Omari Thomas is a lot of the time.
Yeah, Omari Thomas does a very thankless job for Tennessee. A job that Albert Haynesworth would absolutely refuse to do, honestly.
Well, he did. He refused to do it in Washington.
He did. Absolutely.
And he was told if you have 10 sacks, you've had a failure of a year. And so he melted in.
Yeah, he did. He took his money and went home. And I think that I think this one is more, they want a little bit more out of a guy like Darrion Smith. Not that Omari Thomas isn't more valuable, but they haven't had that versatile defensive lineman since Caleb Herring and Jaquan Blakely left that can line up on either side. Basically, what they want a guy, Dave, that can line up on the end when Tim Banks does a 3-down lineman setup, or that can line up in the middle with 4-down lineman. He'll never be the guy that would be the interior lineman with 3-down lineman, the nose tackle, like you say. And And I think they thought they got that in Dominic Bailey. Dave, I didn't even hear anything about Dominic Bailey yesterday. He's still on the roster. Like, is he going to play that much?
Yeah. I think it's a bad sign when you don't hear about somebody in media day. Goodness gracious, you should have a roster and mention everybody.
He's in year 4.
Yeah. One of Hooker's hangouts, Asia Cafe. Treat yourself to authentic Asian cuisine, handcrafted from guarded family recipes. 5 locations to choose from. It's just right down below asiacafe.org, asiacafe.org. But we can say this. Whatever you think of Darrion Smith, Tennessee's recruiting just keeps absolutely rolling.
It's balling. They are absolutely killing it on the trail, and they're getting all types of players, and they're beating all types of schools. Beating Ohio State for a kid in the North, even though he's in Maryland, that's a big win, isn't it, Dave? That says something. And for those who, it sounds weird to you guys, but Maryland has actually been Big Ten country for 10 years now. Maryland is in the Big Ten, and Ohio State has a pipeline and connections to the area because of that. They did get Dwayne Haskins out of DC a decade ago. So for Tennessee to beat out Ohio State for this kid is a big win.
And Tennessee right now ranks 6th in recruiting, as it looks like Auburn made a push to get by them. So if you look at the ratings, you have list of usual suspects. Ohio State number 1, Alabama number 2, Georgia number 3, LSU number 4, Auburn number 5, Tennessee number 6. So that would put Tennessee 5th best in the SEC at 6. Still, though, I would say, other than Kirby Smart, I would take Tennessee's coaching staff with like talent over the other coaching staffs ahead of them. Again, other than Kirby Smart, you have Alabama, LSU, Auburn. I would take Tennessee's coaching staff over all of them if the teams were equal and they lined up on either side of the field. You give that some thought and tell me what you think. Brought to you by Work Trucks, all about trucks that are available now, trucks that help you maximize your profits by having the right vehicle. Time is money. The perfect work vehicle doesn't break down, has all the space to carry what you need. That's what Work Trucks is intent on offering, while other dealerships just can't do it. Contracting is about time. Work Trucks saves you time with less back and forth trips and trucks that pass the highest standards to be put to work. The process is also quick and easy when choosing a vehicle for Work Trucks. They've got the Napod work bodies, cargo vans, utility body trucks. You don't have to go to dealerships that are not able to get your trucks. Remember, Work Trucks, if you're a contractor, they've got the dump trucks as well, the cranes. You need Work Trucks on Clinton Highway in Knoxville, downtown Birmingham. Work Trucks with an X, LLC.com, WorkTrucksLLC.com. Please tell them that Off the Hook Sports sent you, proud supporters of the Vols. So what are your thoughts there, Caleb?
I don't understand why you would say outside of Kirby Smart. I mean, I don't see why Kirby Smart stands out in terms of all talent being equal, why he stands out above Hugh Freeze or Kalen DeBoer or Brian Kelly. I mean, Kirby Smart has the national titles, but that's because he's gotten more talent than the other ones.
So if talent is even, are you taking all of those current recruiting teams that are ranked above Tennessee, which would be, let me go back and double check to make sure I'm correct, which would be Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Auburn. You would take Tennessee's coaching staff over all of those?
Yeah, and certainly Ohio State. They're not in the SEC, but certainly Ohio State.
On, yes. Caleb, you can't take it over Kalen DeBoer. He just played for a college football championship.
You just said you would.
Well, it sounded good at the time.
Okay, but here's my point. But I was actually going to get to that. You said you would. That's why I don't understand why you would take you said outside of Kirby Smart, because Dave, I'm sorry. I'm taking Kalen DeBoer's coaching staff over Kirby Smart's. What was more impressive? What's a better coaching job? Getting Washington to the playoff or winning a national title with the talent Kirby Smart had at Georgia?
Okay, but let me ask you this. Which coach would you hire if you had an opening right now?
That's not the question. That's not that, because obviously Kirby Smart I would hire, because recruiting is a factor in football. You said recruiting out the window, talent out the window.
No, I meant between Kalen DeBoer and Josh Heupel.
Yeah, I would take Josh Heupel, but I'm trying to say, why did you say with the exception of Kirby Smart? I don't know. Like, would you not take Josh Heupel over Kirby Smart? Everything being equal, staff wise?
Now that you bring it up, I tell you what, I would take Josh Heupel, game day, game preparation coach. All right. Sunday at 12:01 a.m. through game time. Here's who I would take of those teams that are listed above Tennessee in recruiting. I would take Brian Kelly at LSU. And that's not the only one I would take. I would also take Kalen DeBoer because both of those coaches have gotten to the college football playoff. And LSU or Brian Kelly did so at Notre Dame with a lot less talent. So I would take those two coaches right now based off what I know. If I had an opening and I had to hire one of the three coaches, I would hire Josh Heupel because I think he has a higher ceiling.
Game day preparation, I'm absolutely taking Heupel over Brian Kelly now. Brian Kelly's handling of the defense at LSU last year, I'm going to talk about this maybe later in the off season before this season starts, but
do it.
We talk about Brian. I'm sorry.
You do it, brother.
We talk about the horrible coaching job Lincoln Riley did last year. That's only rivaled by the horrible coaching job Brian Kelly did last year at LSU. And they play each other, by the way, USC and LSU. I think the coach who loses that game might be on the hot seat. And so I would take Josh Heupel over Brian Kelly because Josh Heupel would not have mismanaged. It's funny because we're talking about Josh Heupel, who doesn't care about defense, they say. I don't think Josh Heupel would mismanage the defense the way Brian Kelly mismanaged LSU's defense last year.
Adam says Kelly nor Smart could do what Heupel has done at Tennessee, given what he walked into. I ask you that question, brought to you by our friends at Quality Tire Pro. The Eberle family has been serving Chattanooga's community since 1957. All major brands, full service automotive, brakes, alignments. They've got oil changes and more. QualityTirePros.com. Stop in and say, Off the Hook Sports said, "Hey, Bo." Dave said, "Hey, Bo." That's QualityTirePros.com. QualityTirePros.com. It is in downtown Chattanooga. So, Caleb, your thoughts on what Kelly or Smart could do when Heupel, or what Heupel has done with what he walked into? I don't know about Kelly because he's never faced that. Kirby Smart faced a program, not NCAA issues, I give you that, but he faced a program that was really lacking in Jimmy's and Joe's. So I think Kirby Smart could have walked into almost any program with any sort of pedigree, South Carolina included, and made it a competitor.
No, I totally disagree with you on that. I don't think Georgia was that. It was Georgia. Mark Richt recruited well. It's not like they were that lacking in X's and Jimmy's and Joe's.
They had some trenches. I thought they had some trenches problems. I thought they lost a lot of guys to Alabama.
They had some trenches problems, but they still had top 25 talent. Tennessee didn't have top 50 talent when Josh Heupel took over.
Fair.
And
I agree with both those.
I don't think Kirby Smart could have done it. Y'all ready for this? Y'all ready for this? I'm not so sure Nick Saban could have done what Josh Heupel's done at Tennessee first 3 years on the field. Now, not the Nick Saban now could, because if you hire Nick Saban, his name recruits itself. But Nick Saban, take Nick Saban at Michigan State. The resume he had at Michigan State. Do you think Nick Saban does what Josh Heupel did his first 3 years at Tennessee?
Well, knowing what I know now, I mean, I would say yes.
Why? I don't think he does. He didn't even do it at Michigan State.
Well, LSU was as big of a mess. It was just a different mess.
Yes, but LSU is, as we've talked about, the easiest place in the world to recruit at, and was a much easier place than Tennessee was for Josh Heupel, and wasn't facing probation.
They had facility issues. I mean, it was far different, but they did have issues. I do know this. I can tell you a source close to this conversation said that Nick Saban called his agent. I think I've told you this. Jimmy Sexton says to get me out of here. I don't want to be at LSU. And Kirby Smart said, I'm sorry, Jimmy Sexton said, you need to check and see most per capita players in the NFL. And it was the state of Louisiana. So he decided to stay. Thought that would work out.
And also, Mark Emmert basically sold Nick Saban that we are going to fix up these facilities so you'll be able to recruit those kids to Louisiana.
Yes. And he did. And the facilities are nice now. Apex Apparel Group Design, Apex Apparel, they do so much more. A one-stop shop for all your brand products, not just clothes. Design, brand, market your way. Unique products to promote your business with unparalleled customer service. Full-on brand supply company. Call Tyler and you'll get 15% off your first order. 865-919-3001 down below. 865-919-3001 right down below. Please hit that like and subscribe button. Support our sponsors. That is why we're here. Russ Tastic said strong words, Dave, for someone who couldn't believe we hired Heupel to begin with. I thought Heupel was a good hire. Didn't you? Maybe he's blaming you.
I was higher on Heupel than a lot of people were. A lot of people were very mad about Heupel because they wanted Hugh Freeze, which I thought was I said at the time, Tennessee just fired. Everybody got mad at me for saying this, but I said Tennessee just fired a coach for NCAA investigations. They're not going to hire a coach who got fired for NCAA violations at another school. They're not going to do that when they're desperately trying to avoid probation. And Tennessee fans and a lot of people are like, no, we're going to get Hugh Freeze and we're going to have a great offense and we're going to be amazing. And I'm like, guys, it's not happening. And of course it didn't happen. And people were upset about the Heupel hire. I wrote at the time why it could work. I'm not going to pretend I was sold. I'm not going to be like, oh, I knew this was going to work, but I thought that it could be successful.
Can we save this for tomorrow? Hot take: if Lane or Josh either was at Georgia last year or the next three, they win 3 to 4 titles. Kirby will not. How about for tomorrow, as people apparently like that? He is Caleb Calhoun. I'm Dave Hooker. Hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget. We greatly appreciate that. For Caleb, I'm Dave Hooker. This has been a presentation of Off the Hook Sports.